Welcome back to Sonic Generations. Now we're going into probably the weakest of the action stages by quite a way. It's gonna be Planet Wisp. So, Stephen, what do you think of Planet Wisp in Generations?
I don't mind it. I can see why I see why it irritates you, but I don't nearly dislike it as much as you do.
Chris, what do you think of going in?
Well, it's the worst level I say out of this game, but like I don't mind it either. To be honest, I don't think it's that bad.
It's kind of irritating that Colours is such a good game, but it gets this kind of representation.
It's kind of a bizarre flip-flop, isn't it? Where we get probably two of the levels I like most, or well, actually, I'll give three. I like Seaside Hill Modern, I like Rooftop Run Modern, and I like Crisis City Modern. Like Heroes Unleashed and 06, like three of the weaker games, and they get really good showings. Whereas now we go to like Planet Wisp here, and it's just bland. And my problem with this, it's kind of a twofold kind of thing, because I really like Generations on the whole. Like I said in the intro, it hasn't aged too gracefully for me, but on the whole, if someone asks me what I think of Sonic Generations, it's a fun game, and I would like to be able to compliment it entirely, but it has such a weak ending. Because we have this level which is just underwhelming in like every way possible, and then we go into the final boss, which I'll have my little bitch about that when the time is appropriate for that. But it's really horrible, and you've got such an enjoyable game that just leaves that bad taste at the end. Yeah, we might as well talk about something a little bit more pleasant. Stephen, overall thoughts on Colours, mate?
Colours was fantastic. It was just so good, and it was on the Wii.
Seeing like the opening sections of the modern level, which we'll see once we're done with this, it does kind of make me wonder why Colours never had any sort of HD release.
Yeah.
Because like it's begging for it, really. Like, look how pretty the grassland section just then was. Like, you know, it looks so good.
It was like the Wii didn't exactly get many. Well, in fact, this is the only really good Sonic game on the Wii, honestly, in my opinion. I mean, I know you like Black Knight, but it didn't really appeal to me that much, honestly. But it's like you get Black Knight and Secret Rings, and then you suddenly get this as the last one, and it's just so good.
Don't quote me on this, but I've heard that Colours was worked on by the same like sub-team that worked on Secret Rings, and I'm not sure how that happens.
What? That doesn't make any sense.
Also, fuck these blade things. I lost so many takes from getting hit by them. It's just a very awkward jump to make. I've got to approach it slowly. Like, if you just run up there and leg it and just jump over, then you probably will make it. But if you hesitate too much, then you'll stop. So that's why I just instead of trying to take it naturally, I just go very slowly past it, just so I am in full control.
If I remember correctly, if you get all the red rings in Planet Wisp with Classic Sonic, you get the homing attack, right?
I don't actually know. I've never actually unlocked that.
I think that's what it is. Because I know it does get the homing attack from one set of red rings.
I don't mind it so much here because it's like an optional thing that you can turn on. In Generations 3DS, however, where it's a mandatory thing you are given. You know?
Yeah, it's sort of like you go from fast Sonic to even faster Sonic. It's like it doesn't feel like there's an amazing difference between modern and classic because of the fact that they've both got the homing attack and they both travel fast.
Yeah, so what I was expecting for them with Generations 3DS was having modern Sonic control like Sonic Rush Sonic, which he pretty much does. It's pretty much that same kind of gameplay, but have classic Sonic as being a separate entity that just controls like Mega Drive Sonic, because that's what we think of a classic Sonic. But instead we get this sort of half hybrid sort of thing once you get the homing attack. And it just detracts from that individuality a little bit. Like, it just makes it feel more like, okay, this is a slower version of Sonic Rush Sonic. Like, it plays in too much of a similar fashion for it to feel worth having both Sonics, I could argue.
Do they use any other wisps in this game, in this level? Was it just this?
It's just the spike.
Spike. What kind of wisps were there in colours?
In colours, there's the laser, the block, the drill, hover, frenzy.
Frenzy's the best.
What's frenzy?
You turn into basically this little purple monster that gets bigger and bigger the more it eats, and it destroys everything in its path.
Pretty cool.
Yeah,
It's a little difficult to control here and there because hence the name Frenzy. But
What's the block?
the block one,
terrible.
Yeah, that's kind of irritating. It turns. There's these blue coins that are about, and when you shake the Wiimote, Sonic turns into a block, slams down, and transforms the coins into blocks. So it's basically switching platforms, making some areas open, other areas more accessible by jumping up onto the blocks.
And I don't really like that, to be honest, because block is very situational. Like, it's not integrated smoothly into the gameplay at all. It's just a case of you come to the block section, you use the block wisp, you progress along the block section, and then you're out of the other side, and that's literally it. If you compare that to things like hover, where that can help you progress past a section that you could also just platform through normally, or say even spike in colours, that is. Spike, you can use that to spin dash around places that otherwise you could just go another way. With block, no, it's just you stop, you use block, you move on, and that's all you can really do in those sections, really. And it just doesn't adapt well outside of the predetermined you are going to use the block wisp here sections. It's really a pace killer in my eyes.
Yeah.
And
I think pretty sure there's another wisp I'm leaving out, but I'm not too sure. Oh, the rocket. That's
yeah,
that was the one
Which we'll be seeing here, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I actually do quite like the rocket. It's a very kind of forced thing, but it's just so much fun to see you blast off.
Yeah.
But yeah, this opening section is fucking beautiful.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
Like, absolutely. I'm going to be taking one of the lower paths at the start here, just so we get to see a little bit more of it. Because if you go up that top route, you just go like straight into the factory and like, I want to appreciate this. Look, this is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm going to spend most of this gushing.
Yeah, the outdoors of Planet Wisp has a very nice sort of aesthetic to it, doesn't it?
There's one theory going around about why they prioritised the factory here, in that this is a sort of bad future take on like colours, like where the plot of how Planet Wisp was integrated in colours was Eggman was like taking over this like grassy sanctuary and building on it, and that was, you know, the old story of like you know, nature versus robotics and that they had in the classics and that.
He was turning it into a theme park at first, and then it turns out he's just trying to use the powers of the wisps.
Yeah, and that's how the Frenzy one came in, because the Frenzy are the genetically modified wisps, aren't they? And yeah, I fucking love Frenzy. My favourite part of like using Frenzy is in Astro Coaster, when you know you got that 3D section where it's just all the pillars,
Yeah.
and you just munch through them. Oh, it's so satisfying. I love it. Yeah, you get a lot of me gushing over colours, because colours, it's not a perfect game, but it's just one of them games that whenever you play it, you have so much fun playing it, and that's like the most important thing, I think.
Plus, it introduced Cubot.
Yeah. No, oh yeah, Cubot, because Orbot was sort of in Unleashed.
Yeah. But then he was properly integrated in colours.
Yeah, it was kind of a bit of a character sort of retconning, really, wasn't it? Because he had this gimmick in Unleashed where he's going ergo. I just
Yeah, it's like he was sort of pointing out Eggman's flaws,
Mm.
but not just going out of his way to just say, you're an idiot.
Yeah, because he's sort of snarky about it, wasn't he, which is fantastic.
Which one's which? Chef?
Well, if you think about the shapes of them, one of them has the word orb in their name, one of them has the word cube in their name.
Yeah. The yellow one, your
Cubebot.
Cubebot, yeah, he's the...
He's
sort of
the
something.
idiot, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like his thing in Colours was that his voice box kept going wrong.
Yeah.
It's like throughout it, Eggman's trying to fix it, and then right at the end, he gets his voice box back, and it turns out it's incredibly irritating. He's like, oh god, that's why it was broken in the first place, because I didn't like it.
So what it makes me think of, I don't know if you guys have kept up like with Red vs Blue at all, it just reminds me of Lopez, the one where Sarge tried to give the robot a voice and ended up getting a Spanish voice chip and just rolled with it. Now, this particular section of the level is a trope that I've honestly never cared for. It's the idea of working your way up a vertical structure. And the reason I don't like that is because while it might seem cool that you're just coming from the bottom, working your way up to the top and progressing, and you can see yourself getting higher and higher and all that, the downside of that is that a wrong jump can mean you completely undo several minutes worth of progress. And that's something that really, really fucks me off in games. When like I've been doing something and then just like one tiny mistake and whoop, I'm down. Like, at least if you die, then that puts you back to a checkpoint rather than just like slowly work my way back up to where I've been. It's just something that I could really do without. And Planet Wisp in this section, it's just it leaves me with too much risk, and it makes the level go on a lot longer than it needs to if you happen to fuck up, at least what I recall from my first time playing through the level. But anyway, given we're now at a kind of quiet point in the commentary, I think I'll just take a couple of minutes to go over some of the other final levels that I think worked much better than Planet Wisp as the ending to a Sonic game. Because first things first, the one that comes to my mind is the final level, or sort of pseudo final level from Colours, that being Asteroid Coaster, the one that feels the most final out of all of them anyway. That is so much more aesthetically pleasing, or at least aesthetically threatening, I guess. Like, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it feels much more intimidating as a sort of final challenge to a game than Planet Wisp does. And it has a lot more gimmicks that really throw you into the excitement as opposed to slowly climbing up a tower. And I guess if you're looking at the true final stage from Colours, there's Terminal Velocity, which isn't really enough of a level to adapt. And that's why I go with Asteroid Coaster in that respect. But there's also other things like, I know we've got Rooftop Run from Unleashed, but I wouldn't have minded to see a kind of abridged take on Eggman Land. I wouldn't want the full 35-minute sort of labyrinth thing. That would have been fucking boring, but I wouldn't have minded like an abridged Eggman Land in this game. That would have been kind of cool. But yeah, it's just a difficult thing because of how they have this one level per game format and they're going in chronological order, because they kind of have to pick from Colours. It's like the only option they've got to draw from, unless they're going for spin-offs and shit, but they're just not going to do that. But it just makes me think, because I would have liked to have seen either Egg Fleet or Final Fortress, or like kind of mash up with them from Heroes as well. That's another good final level that could have worked well in Generations. Or even things like, say, Final Rush or Final Chase from SA2. I know I briefly went over Final Rush in the City Escape part, but that would have been a really fun level to boost through. And it's just, when I think of all these really cool final levels we could have had, going to Planet Wisp it feels really underwhelming.
So that was the moment when classic Sonic realised he wanted to be like modern Sonic, and that's when everything went downhill. He's like, he just homing attacked. I want to be like him. Don't save yourself.
The Sonic series made a bad future.